Yeah, hi, I'm Ross Kenny and I own a company called Boyne Boats. What I do is try to move you physically and emotionally. When you're sitting down in the boat, reach forward in front of you, pull the water back. And that's what I do. I give you a guided tour and we chat about history, mythology. The boats that I use are actual Game of Thrones boats, so if anybody's heard of Game of Thrones, I was lucky to work on that for a number of years.
It's good fun.
Thank you.
So the boat that we're in, it's a traditional Irish navogue currach. So currach is the Irish word for skin boat, and navogue is the Kerry currach, so down off the west coast of Kerry. So offshore into the Atlantic, this is what you had, which wasn't for the faint-hearted. Bearing in mind it's a skin-on frame boat, so it's just a thin skin between you and the Atlantic Ocean. But amazingly versatile boats and brilliant in open water and can bounce over waves. They can surf, or they can be used nice and relaxing like this, paddling on a canal. Went looking for a job. There was none to be had doing what I like doing. So I had this boat on a second one and went into a local tourist office, asked them if there was anything I could do on the river. They laughed and said nothing ever happens on the river. So about 6 months later, started Boyne Boats and started doing these guided tours on the canal where we are now and also out onto the river. So it was because I couldn't get a job that I had to create my own one. It's probably one of the most sacred rivers and river valleys in the world. It's known as kind of the birthplace of Ireland in some ways. We have obviously there's the big UNESCO World Heritage Site at Newgrange, Boyne, the bend in the river, which is about 3 kilometers upstream from here. And the rivers were the highways. That's how people got around. And when you take somewhere like Newgrange, the big curbstones that were cut and the artwork that's drawn on them, they were quarried at a place called Clogherhead, which is down the river and up the north coast, about 30 kilometers away. And we don't know how they got them up the river. So there's one train of thought which suggests that boats, ancestors of this type of boat, could have existed back then and they possibly transported them. Maybe they built rafts, maybe they had some other ingenious way of doing it that we don't know about. Yeah, the Boyne, again, very important because it's that, I suppose, the first farmers in Ireland. Some of them would have come to the Boyne Valley. The fertile land that's there is fantastic for farming and obviously still is. And it's a nice place to live, a nice place to hang out, and still is. And the canal then that we're on came a bit later, although this is one of the oldest canals in Ireland, so over 270 years old. So this was built as transport, and this was all dug out by hand with shovels, pickaxes, wheelbarrows, an awful lot of hard labour. But the whole lot was abandoned about 100 years ago and left to nature because the railway came in, trains took over. So all the trees that you see around us here, particularly in this area on both sides, they wouldn't have existed really when this was a working canal. So looks a lot different now, a lot more natural looking and a good place for the fairies to hide out. And the fairies and magic and mythology is a huge part of the Irish story, and it all goes back to those kind of ancient times when we know very, very little. And there was a little girl on the boat. She was about like 8 or 9, and they'd been up at Newgrange that morning, and they came down to me in the afternoon and we were paddling along, and she turned to her mammy and she said, "Oh mammy, look, the swirls from the stones." So if you look when you're paddling, it creates little water swirls, I suppose, like little water spouts. And she likened it to the swirls on the entrance stone to Newgrange. So who knows, maybe that is the connection to Newgrange on the water, is the actually you're following in the paddle strokes of our ancestors. So as good a theory as any, I suppose, because there is no written record to explain any of what happened really up around Newgrange and why our ancestors built what they built and did what they did. We know very little about them. So there you go. The artwork comes from the water. I'll have to claim that for all the boatmen of the world. Once you come down onto the water, even for local people who have come out to me, they walk up on the walkway just here beside us, Then they come down onto the water and they're really moved by the fact that they're only 10 meters away from where they've always walked. But by coming onto the water, it's a completely different world. And I think trying to show people that and give them that experience gives me a great kick, and it keeps my life interesting. So welcome to the Boyne River. So this is where it all started, thousands and thousands of years ago. And even if you look up ahead of us, it's very easy to kind of imagine what it would be like coming up along here. All you have is river, reeds and trees. And you can hear the water behind me. But then further up, it's absolutely silent. It's just us and nature, and you start out on the water, you slow down. And that's a big part of what I do, is just slow down. You know, life at the moment seems to go very, very quickly. So come out onto the water, slow it all down, have a look and a listen around you. It's nice to be able to do it.